So obviously it's been a very tough week for me. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I've had a wake-up call this week about how bad our political environment has been affecting me. And I'm sure it's affected a lot of people negatively. And it's really affected me. The wake-up call I had was that I realized that this whole thing isn't about Democrats versus Republicans, left versus right, what have you. This is really about the people as a whole fighting fascism. And we're losing that fight big time. And I mean, I felt the same way. I still think that MAGA, the content of their character points towards Nazi. That's why I call them that, because I have not met a nice actual MAGA. Now, I know so many Republicans, and I've met very good ones, but unfortunately, they also voted for this dictator in office, and that means they adopted the policies that this dictator put in place. And the issue is, the reason I'm calling this fascism is because of how he is dividing all of us, okay? How he managed to show up as patriotism, but really it's nationalism. How he managed to get an entire following, using the economy. I mean, Hitler did the same thing. That's how it started, was with the economy, and we're going to make Germany great again. But the thing is, all of these people don't realize that what they voted for was fascism. And maybe some do realize that, because they truly believe that if they keep their heads down and not do anything and just follow all of the rules, they'll be okay. But let me tell you, they won't be. I have been so angry to the point where I've said some horrific things about the other side. And I'm not proud of that, but I'm also, I'm not proud of that. I'm not going to take it back, but I'm not proud of that. I had a troll account on Twitter, also known as Twatter, as I call it now, or the Elon's 4chan dumpster fire. But, I got on there, and it is a dumpster fire. It's a dumpster fire of propaganda from both sides. Okay, I was guilty of spreading that propaganda on the left side. Quite frankly, I mean, yes, I'm not going to lie, we do care more about humanity, but the way we handle the situation is no better than the way Republicans do, let's be honest, in a lot of ways, But when they were in office, trans people weren't criminals. When they were in office, they were still able to be in the military. When they were in office, they were able to receive gender-affirming care that, by the way, is not the propaganda that people have been passing around. Speaking of trans people, that brings me to my next point. I have advocated, as I've said before in many of my videos, I have advocated for the LGBTQIA community since the age of 15, okay? When it was just LGBT, okay? I have been advocating since then. The trans community are now the low-hanging fruit, along with immigrants, okay? And women, but mostly the trans people and immigrants, okay? And, they have done so much protesting for everyone else that it's time for them to sit this one out and let us go out and fight for them. If it wasn't for the trans community, who threw the first fucking brick, by the way, they threw that first brick. If it wasn't for the trans community who threw that hot coffee on that abusive cop's face while he was hurting other people who were trans at Compton's Diner, if it wasn't for those brave people who stood up, we wouldn't have pride. Now, I know people hate pride. They complain about it all the time, but they don't realize, or maybe they do, that the reason pride exists is because of the shit that they post, is because of the propaganda that they post to hurt us. So I'm going to say this. It is our turn. It's our turn to stand up for them, because they've stood up. The trans and gender diverse communities have stood up for us since 1969 and before that. They have stood up, and if it wasn't for that brick that was thrown at Stonewall by a trans woman, they'll try to change that story. It was a trans woman, okay? We would never have pride. So to my fellow LGBTQIA people, and to the people LGB without the T, this is about people versus fascism, and the LGB will not be safe. You guys think keeping your head down and thinking that, accepting that propaganda against the trans community is going to keep you safe? You're next. You want to know how we stood for pride? We all worked together, all of us. If it wasn't for that first brick thrown by a trans woman, I would never be able to take the word queer back. They need to sit this one out. We need to be out there fighting for them, because we owe them. We owe them that much.